Ron, welcome to the Home Services Growth Summit show. If you will, tell us a little bit about your background in your career today.
Sure. Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me. And Ron Sherman Advertising, excited to be a part of your upcoming seminar. I'm looking forward to attending. But just a little bit about myself and Ron Sherman Advertising. We are dedicated exclusively to the home improvement industry. We've been doing this for 40 years now. I'm second generation, so Ron Sherman was a local weatherman back in Little Rock, Arkansas 40 years ago, and it all started from some local siding companies wanted him to do some talent work for him, and TV was a lot different back then. You didn't even have cable channels and satellite TV and all that yet, and they would do this kind of different format where they would they would go to a station and they would say, we want to buy up every 2-minute break for an entire 3-hour afternoon movie. Maybe a Western from 1 to 4 or something like that, putting a ball game on. And they would basically turn it into a telethon on location. And, it would turn into like one of those Jerry Lewis telethons or something like that. And they talk about the company and the product and really pitch the offer to call now. And the phones would light up. And, we have fancier buzzwords and terms now than how my dad approached it then. But it was a way for him to really have a feel. It was almost like live research and development where he'd pitch it a certain way during a certain break and only get 11 calls, and then the next 2-minute break he'd try it with a little bit different emphasis on a different phrase, and he'd get 17 calls, and he really honed the way he pitched the offer and the promotion to get people to stop what they were doing, pick up the phone and call. And it turned into kind of a foundation, a framework, if you will, for how we still do direct response spots today. We now have the Guinness World Record for most commercials produced.
Yeah, well, this is one of the subjects I really love. But what I'm fascinated with is that you also have a home services remodeling business, as well as being a CEO of an advertising company that has such a strong focus in home services. And I heard this over and over, even when I was in the TV space. When I would think about local TV, I knew about this agency in Little Rock, and nothing against Little Rock, but it's not necessarily where you think of as a hot spot for TV advertising. That's usually Chicago, New York, one of those kind of cities. But, you guys have crafted out a really good space for yourself with your knowledge in TV. But what was the impetus to go all in on home services?
Sure. So absolutely. So, it really has always been our focus, what we're best at. We do have the Guinness World Record for most commercials produced. We actually bought here in Little Rock the United Artists UA4 movie theater, so we have a huge 22,000 square foot space to tape about 1,000 commercials a month. And then along the way, I had a small client that was a family friend of mine that had Bath Makeover of Arkansas, and he had other investments, and I talked to him about, hey, would there be an opportunity here for me to maybe, look at buying this bath business off your hands? I think I could take it and run with it, and I could tell he was kind of maybe wanting to get out of the business, because it is a tough business dealing with people every day, and it's a unique business. I can tell you that firsthand. So I was able to start Bath Makeover of Arkansas, and the last year that the previous owner had it, I think they did $600,000 in sales, and that was 5 years ago. And this year we're going to do $8.5 million. And so that really is a great testimony for me every day, talking to new potential clients, to be able to say that we don't offer anything to our clients that I haven't already done with Bath Makeover of Arkansas myself. We view it as our in-house R&D department, to where anytime we're going to test a new type of advertising, whether it's some new streaming platform, whether it's a new social media platform, a new type of promotion, whatever it is, it starts with a 90-day test with Bath Makeover before we would even pitch it to a client for Ron Sherman Advertising.
Which theater is this? Which UA theater is this?
United Artists, UA4. Used to be, it's out off the Geyer Springs exit. Now the state police has moved in next door, so that was a big break for us. It wasn't a great neighborhood. It was a little bit run down down this part of the rock out in Southwest, but the state police decided to buy up the vacated mall right next to us, so that helped make it a little safer.
That's great. I know exactly where it is. One of the things I think that we run into, though, all the time, and it's what I love about this, but you're bringing advertising expertise that helps people in this space, you're not competing with somebody in the, Chicago market. Your bath business, for example, is focused on Little Rock and Arkansas, but you're able to take the knowledge you glean from that and apply it in all these different markets. One of the things that I find often is that a lot of agencies, because of my own background in TV, I find quite often that there seems to be a lot of gaps, especially with TV and how it's evolved with digital. What are you sort of seeing in the marketplace with what agencies could do better, especially as they marry TV and digital together?
Sure. So the first thing there that I think is an important note to hit on is, everyone knows our niche, our primary niche is home improvement, but we have a second area of expertise that doesn't get enough credit. So most agencies fall into two categories. They're either an agency specifically in, say, Little Rock, Arkansas, and they know the Little Rock TV market, right? All their clients are local companies here in Little Rock. Or they're a huge, big agency in New York or LA, and they work with national clients like Coca-Cola or Walmart, and they know how to buy national. We're somewhere in between. Our expertise is knowing how to buy TV, whether it's home improvement or not, in every local market in the country. So if someone calls me today and asks about Des Moines, Iowa, I'm going to talk about WHO, NBC, and WOI, ABC, and KTCI, CBS, and talk about their local market in Des Moines, Iowa more intelligently than an agency in Des Moines, Iowa. So that's really something that we can do with every market in the country. Now, we have that expertise because we work with a home improvement client in every market in the country, but that's the other thing that's important, is we've already placed media in every market in the country already, so we know which TV stations are the best stations, which programs on those stations get the best cost per call, excuse me, what the lowest rate is, realistically when we're negotiating. So we've already, we already have that expertise. And because we do a lot of volume with every station across the country, there's a lot of consolidation now. They're all owned by Tegna, Nexstar, Sinclair. We spend over 8 figures with our clients on all of those. So we have tremendous buying power and local expertise on pretty much every station in the country.
Yeah, that's great. So let's back then into the home services industry. Where do you see TV advertising today for the industry? And what do you see for the near term, especially as we go in, we're in an election year?
Sure. So, you'll have different political windows in certain markets that will have to buy a little bit different. And some of them will luck out a little bit. Normally Iowa around this time starts to be terrible. Through March, April, but fortunately the Iowa primary on the Republican side has moved up earlier, and a lot of clients really don't start advertising heavily till around Martin Luther King Day on January 15th, and by then a lot of the political for this primary will have already passed through and we'll be back to normal for the rest of first quarter. So sometimes you catch a break there, and then sometimes so every market in the country will be a little bit different when their primary dates are, and the TV stations will give us what's called a political window, and we'll know that these are in this date range to expect more added political advertisements to come in, and we might have and they're going to buy primarily bigger newscast programs on the main stations. So we might have to either, we just have to work through it. We might have to pay a slightly higher rate on a big newscast, and if it's worth it, we'll keep it. If it makes more sense to reallocate those to cheaper programs on that station or run on a weaker station in the market, or we overbuy knowing that some of it's going to get preempted, we just, on a case-by-case basis, work through everything in those markets. And then we watch it every week to see what kind of clearance we're getting and results, and it's all a little bit different. But going back to one of your first questions there about where does TV fit in, the thing to keep in mind and not overreact to whenever there's a shiny new object is don't forget who your customer is, particularly with baths. I mean, my average customer is over the age of 65. If you look at media consumption habits, the amount of TV per day that someone over the age of 65 watches is actually flat. In some cases, it's even up 2 or 3%. They still watch live TV. You're correct, or the naysayers are correct, that people 18 to 34 do not watch anywhere near as much live TV as previous, and that's declining. But that doesn't matter if you're trying to make the phone ring today to make someone call in about a walk-in shower. So sometimes we can overreact to changes in media consumption habits and not see the opportunity, because where the opportunity lies is when we're not in a political window, a lot of brand advertisers that focus on 18 to 49 demos are not spending as much money on TV, and we can get some lower rates with unsold inventory or softer markets because some advertisers are not there, but our core audience, over 55 and over 65, are still watching the same amount of TV.
Well, it's fascinating to me because I used to argue this all the time with agencies who were trying to understand how to connect with their customers. An ad is still an ad, whether it's shown on my 86-inch TV hanging on the wall or an iPad. Knowing how to reach them in that medium is really not it's not rocket surgery, but it's easy to screw up, and it's you got to make certain that you do this because if you want a really quick way to see the leads turn off and the calls to turn down, it's to be fearful, especially during election year, and be afraid to dive into TV. And that's one of the things that why I'm really glad to see your expertise coming. So let's do a little role play here. I hear this all the time with clients that approach me with this question. I'm a business owner in a home services business. Could be remodeling, could be lawn care, could be bug and pest, whatever. I've done TV campaigns before. It was expensive and I didn't get that much out of it. I'm hesitant to do it again with a limited budget. Why should I invest in TV?
Sure. So, one of the things that I always try to figure out is, what did you do before? In most cases, the TV stations package things pretty similarly across the country. More than likely, you ran a 30-second image ad. Maybe it said something like save 10%. And they put you in a lot of early mornings at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and some daytime programs. And you ran a 15 or 30-second spot. And you really probably didn't get any direct calls off of the phone number on that spot. You maybe had a few people tell you they saw it. You got a little bit of an uptick in web traffic, but overall, it really didn't do much for you. And if your choice, if the only way you could do TV was to do that again, it doesn't make sense to do it again. Did it wrong, and that's okay. With our program, we're going to be, admittedly, not the prettiest TV commercials. We're not trying to win some kind of Addy or award for the funniest or cutest commercial. It won't be. It will be, a very, very traditional formula of an attention-grabbing lead-in about your product or service. It will build value with your company. It will be localized to your market, and then we'll have a reason to stop what you're doing and act now. There will be a promotion. It could be our triple savings sale, where first you could save half off labor of the installation of a new bathtub or shower. Second, ask about interest-free financing options. Third, receive a $200 Visa gift card. And as a bonus, if you stop what you're doing and call right now during this program, you get a $25 Amazon gift card with estimate. And then as we build throughout our program, we'll run multiple spots in one program. So we take over the program, and it still goes back to what I said initially of it feeling like it's live. That live telethon that Ron Sherman did 40 years ago where we take over the whole program. We still do that in our own way. We'll buy 4 60-second spots in an hour program. And that last spot will say, this is your last chance to call now during this program to take this special offer. And people call in excited, do I qualify for the special savings? And they're making sure that they actually get people to stop and take now. Because otherwise, you're going to see that image ad that other people run once a week for a couple months, 6 months, whatever it is, and maybe eventually you decide to take action. We expedite the process a little bit by hammering it 3 or 4 times in a program on one day, with that last chance to call during your program to get this special offer. And it gets people to actually stop what they're doing and pick up the phone right now today. So for our clients, it becomes really easy for them to measure success or failure. We were in the noon news on Monday, or we were in the 4P news on Tuesday, and it cost X amount, and we got X number of calls. This is what our cost per call was. They also know when the phones are going to light up. It's very simple. When this program runs during this hour of the day, that's when the phone's going to ring. So be on standby. If we're heavy in the noon news on a certain day, tell your phone people not to go to lunch at noon. The phones are going to light up around 12:30, 1 o'clock. So those kind of things. So from a planning standpoint, from a measuring standpoint, it's pretty straightforward when we do our direct response system that is generating an immediate response.
What are your thoughts on, because I run into this all the time as well. I don't care if it's clients of mine that are in Cleveland or Miami or Baton Rouge. This happens a lot where a small to medium-sized business owner in that local market gets approached by the local TV station. And that local TV station will, push their ad services, as their agency services, if you will, and try to sell you direct. And they sell a bundle of digital stuff, which looks great on their digital platform, because they do get a fair amount of traffic that comes to the, KXYZ or WABC station, wherever they are. But a lot of, dealers get locked into that and they work with the local ABC affiliate or the local NBC affiliate, whatever, that's where a lot of them, I think, kind of waste a lot of their money.
Sure, absolutely. So I think initially, when you're first starting TV, now if you're a bigger company and you have $100,000 a month budget in Chicago, and then maybe it makes sense to sponsor the weather, on the 10P News on WLS ABC in Chicago. Maybe that makes sense then. But when you're just starting out, and maybe you're in, Cleveland, Ohio, for example, and your budget's $8,000 to $10,000 a month, and maybe at that point it really makes more sense to utilize our expertise where we can be more surgical, where we can tell you, hey, on the ABC station, these 3 programs will get the best cost per call. We're only going to run these 3 programs once a month. And then the same thing on the NBC affiliate or the ABC affiliate, et cetera. And your schedule is just comprised of the top 2 or 3 performing programs based on a cost per call basis in that market. Because you don't really have the budget to just do a blanket sponsorship or high volume approach on one station, whereas we can go in and just utilize our expertise and pick the programs that make the most sense so that you can get traction. And then as it makes sense, you can obviously raise your budget from there.
If you could plan out a campaign for somebody and perfectly lay it out with a blueprint, where would you want people to start looking at a high level at adding TV into their mix?
Sure. So, where we are right now, typically for us, one, it's just going to be about a 30-day turnaround from when someone says, yes, we want to use Ron Sherman advertising. But so what that would look at now, a great launch point for a TV campaign, first quarter is typically a cheaper time of the year. A lot of advertisers don't really get going full speed till late March, April, going into second quarter. So February and March are a little softer. But during February, you have a great holiday, President's Day. Coming up next week in January, we have MLK Day. But if you're not on TV now, you're not going to make it on by MLK Day. But it is a great day to run TV. But coming up in February, you've got President's Day. A lot of new clients, as we pick up clients around this time of year, that's when we like to blast off and be heavy on a day like President's Day, because it's a way to reach more people than you would on an average day. It's a holiday, but it's during the winter. People are off work, but they're more likely to be home sampling TV versus July 4th or Labor Day where they're out grilling and on the lake and all those kind of things. So President's Day and Martin Luther King Day as well are great days that we typically love to blast off new client campaigns because it gets us out the gates running instead of having that typical, well, we turned on this new lead source and the first week was kind of slow and we're hoping it'll build as we go. We love leveraging MLK Day and President's Day as a way to get out the gates running. Obviously, the clients like that too.
Well, I'm excited to hear you speak at the Home Services Growth Summit in February. You're talking about making TV advertising work in 2024. But if people can't get to the show, or if they can and they want to just meet you in person, tell people where they should go to meet Ron Sherman Advertising and Ron Jumper and find out more about you and your team.
Sure. Then go to RonShermanProductions.com. Or you can always find me at, Ron Jumper on LinkedIn or any of those kind of things. I'd love to hear from everybody. Go on our website, fill out a contact form, and more than likely we'll reach out with you that same day to schedule a meeting to, just basically do a needs assessment and see what makes sense for you. And we give you pretty honest feedback. I typically evaluate a client in a couple of different ways. Based on the market size that they're in, we give you a minimum budget that we would recommend just to be able to have a full schedule in that market. And then we really talk through what your lead goals are and then just work backwards into a budget that makes sense to try to accomplish those goals. And if, if it's something that you can fit into your marketing budget, it makes sense, then we'd be happy to work with you.
Outstanding. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today on the Home Services Growth Summit show.
Thank you for having me.